theory. Authoritarian theory is one where the government has a huge part and involved with all forms of communication. This would mean that the government could have the press and media under strict censorship. Things like newspapers, books, magazines, all forms of social media would have guidance from the government. This theory has been around for many, many years. Plato was one of the most influential philosophers who helped create the foundation for it. Most English monarchs used this theory to gain control. This theory was directly correlated with the creation of censorship, licensing, taxation, and creating laws for the printing press. Governments referred to this theory with the societies, and technology was first developed to maintain it. Authoritarian theory is heavily dissected in the four theories of the press textbook, with Fred S. Siebert, Theodore Peterson, and Wilbur Schramm who were the first to recognize it in 1956. An example of authoritarian theory in action is Eritrea. President Isaias Afwerki campaigned to stop independent journalists and put restrictions on internet access to the citizens. Eritrea stopped mobile internet for their citizens, limiting their access to independent information. This continues their blindness to the problems that journalists share on the internet and allows them to only gather their information through their president's statements.
Looking at the authoritarian theory at its highest strength point, it can be best applied when resolving social and cultural issues. It is also accounted to be one of the biggest motivators for trying to get a society to work for its country and one another. In this case, it is crafted as a base foundation for incredible propaganda use. Allowing the theory to rise big forms it to be the best disciplinary method preventing certain medias from being presented irresponsibly. When presented in darker moments, the authoritarian theory can be at its spookiest. The common people in society are taken as easier to manipulate using this theory. So again, one must act responsibly when using it. As they say, with great power comes great responsibility. Following this, usually the ruling classes use this type of theory for their own personal gain or benefit. Since it is used to manipulate or convince a mass of people, it strips the freedom of their own ability to express whatever they believe or lean towards or allow themselves to choose what they want to think. People often fail to define authoritarianism because it is based on the definition of democracy. The only real definition given is an absence of democracy and freedom, rather than a positive point of view for the actual system itself. The author of this academic journal defines it as a pattern of actions, sabotaging accountability to people over whom a political actor exerts control by disabling their access to information. A study that would apply to authoritarian theory could test the amount of knowledge people have about the world in an area with media censorship. We could take a survey of people under authoritarian media control and a survey of people in more democratic media places and compare the results. We would observe the amount of historical events as well as current events that each group has knowledge of and observe the access each group has about global events.
It is hard to find a piece of media that the authoritarian theory is not applied to, as we know the media is any form of mass communication, television, video games, newspapers, and more. Going off that, we learn from the authoritarian theory that all forms of communications are under the control of governing elite or authorities or influential bureaucrats, meaning that all forms of media are created by someone who at some point was influenced to make that media, and their content is made with the intention of spreading their influence.